The Perils of Paradise meta has finally solidified, and these are the 5 best decks in the game right now. If you do end up using one of these decks, you need to subscribe to the YouTube channel. That's like the troll toll. You know, you can't cross over the bridge without paying the troll toll. If you want to get into that little boy's hole, you need that troll toll. Wait a minute. But in all seriousness, I have 5 decks prepared in this video that are the best decks in Top Legend, and I have 2 other videos that I will be releasing over this next week, talking about the best decks to hit Legend, as well as my top 5 most fun decks in the meta right now. But the reason I am posting this right now instead of doing it all in one take is because there's a lot of decks to go through. I'm still not 100% on all of my data yet, and there might be some balance changes coming out pretty soon this next week. So I just decided, you know, let's get this out right now. Let's tell you guys what the best decks are, because most likely, if there's going to be any changes, these are going to be the decks that are for sure going to be nerfed or changed, so you gotta play them now. And let's go ahead and just jump right into it. Don't forget, if you use any of these decks, you need to subscribe to the video. That is an absolute requirement. I ain't playing around, dude. I ain't taking no ifs, ands, or buts, or maybes. It is a yes. You must click it now. But yeah, fun Shaman, Nostalgia Shaman. This is the best deck in Legend as of right now. This is the new king of the meta, the new top of the food chain, at least in the top Legend ranks, to where Druid is now fizzling out. That is right. Druid is fizzling out at top Legend because this deck absolutely takes a gigantic dump all over Druid. And the main reason why is because we're essentially playing like a token Shaman deck that has the Thrall's Gift into Bloodlust as a very real win condition that is going to be probably your primary win condition with this deck if you're not going to do something with Wave of Nostalgia. This deck is extremely good, and there will be a deck guide going over this deck in the next couple of days, since I have a lot of content that I will be rolling out over this next week. But yeah, Wave of Nostalgia Shaman is a very real deck to where there are 3 really good Shaman archetypes that pretty much have the same 25 cards, but the last 5 cards kind of make the deck a little bit different. Like there's Bonk Shaman, for example, that plays the Wind Fury weapon. There's Pirate Shaman that goes more so into the patches and the other pirates that are available for Demon Hunter. But this version of the deck is actually utilizing Muck Pools and Evolve mechanics in order to turn your Sea Giants into 8/5s with Reborn. You can also, you know, transform your Zilliax into a 9-drop. One of the coolest plays that I've actually done with this deck is to utilize the Growfin Gigantify minion. You can play the 8-drop, you can rush the 8/8, and then you can evolve that 8/8 into another 9-drop, and you can get like Obsidian statues. But just looking at some of the 9-drops that are available in this deck, we have Sitch Giant, we have Fi that has Lifesteal, we have King Plush that has Charge, we have another minion that has Taunt, we have Taunt Lifesteal, we have Lifesteal Rush. Like I never really looked at these before. This is a pretty bad one. I've never gotten this before. Don't tell me that this is in the pool, actually. I don't want to think about it. But there's actually a lot of really good, you know, taunt minions that are available for 9 mana. You know, there's Alexstrasza, there's Dragons, there's another taunt minion. Like, you can't evolve into Yogg. But yeah, there's actually a lot of really good options that are available from the 9-drops available to Shaman. So yeah, this is the easiest deck to hit Legend right now, as well as the easiest deck to climb with right now. And I went 15-5 with this deck yesterday, 15-6. I had a really good win rate with this deck yesterday, almost an 80%. But the most powerful thing that you can do with this list is honestly just set up the charge minions with the Bloodlust. Like, the real power of this list is having board control, playing Zilliax. You can wave into a scam board. Backstage Bouncer is absolutely insane in order to give you an amazing amount of tempo. Sea Giants obviously are a scam. Like, this deck has a lot of things that it can utilize, and it's not just playing wave or just playing the Bloodlust. There are a lot of different ways this deck can win with like cookie shenanigans. So like, if you want a deck that has a little bit of some flexibility to it, and it's not just all about jamming the wave against like the Zilliax against the Warrior, for example, this is probably the best deck in Legend right now that just has the best win rate overall. And if you guys are paying attention when we were going over the 9-drops, I actually have 10 total decks to show you. That's right. Even in a top 5 video where I'm already like kind of bringing it back a little bit, I am still talking about a lot of Hearthstone decks. And this is the other side of the Shaman that we have been seeing for a while, but something has just been not just as good as the other versions of this deck. Like the Nostalgia Shaman just seems to be superior to this deck in every single way. But if you're wanting, you know, a deck that you already have crafted to take you to Legend, this is still an easy deck that can make you hit Legend, but just be aware that your early game pressure with the Pirates is going to be your main win condition, as well as Horn of the Windlord. Wave of Nostalgia is kind of in here as like a tech card against like Warrior, because this card was not really, you know, solidified as a good card yet. But with this particular version of the deck, one wave is probably the way to go because you are trying to aggro your opponent with attacks, with pirates, and with Wind Fury capabilities with your weapons. So that is just going to be the primary way you win. Putting a double wave in this deck is probably a little bit counterintuitive, but you might be able to like tech one card for this if you really wanted to. But Pirate Shaman, a much simpler, kind of simpler deck, but in all honesty, regular Evolve, the deck I just showed you, is vastly superior, and I think this deck is going to completely drop like a gnat once people start playing the other Shaman deck. Next up, we have Concierge Druid. There's no way this deck doesn't get nerfed, but the really funny thing about this is that if you caught me like 3 days ago, tell me what the best decks in Legend are, this would have been my #1. It's not even a question. This is the best deck in the format without any doubt. But now that Shaman is coming into the fray, now that Aggro Paladin is actually entering the top Legend ranks, Druid is getting countered. It's not that Druid isn't still one of the best decks in the game. Like, you could play this at lower MMRs and absolutely destroy people if you know what you're doing with a deck like this. But at top Legend, people are getting countered by playing Druid, so its numbers are technically going down, and I have to report on that. But is that going to be, you know, substantial enough in order to prevent this card from getting nerfed? Absolutely not. So if you're unfamiliar with the combo, the whole point of this deck is just play a bunch of spell damage. You can swipe to get rid of essentially almost any board your opponent is going to generate, and then you have Seabreeze Chalices in order to throw a bunch of damage for free, because Concierge will make it cost 0. You can put a Chalice within the Pupil and get yourself another 3-proc Chalice. You also have ridiculous amounts of spell damage with not only Magical Dollhouse, but you have Goat the Flow as well as Chia Drakes. There's just a lot going for this deck, and I really don't think that Concierge avoids a nerf. It's probably gonna go to like just a 4 mana, so they could say they slow down the combo and you could still utilize this and all the other, you know, utilizations that Concierge is known for with like drinks and whatnot. But I really don't think this card is gonna survive. I think this card is either gonna go to 4 mana, or maybe they put the cards can't be below 1 mana clause on this. But if you want my honest opinion, that just turns this card from a 5-star card that enables an archetype to the worst card in this expansion. So I really don't know the answer to Concierge, but just be aware, this card is probably gonna die. It's probably gonna die very painfully. Next up is Tempo Druid. I really don't want to spend a lot of time talking about this deck because this is still the boogeyman of the previous expansion, but it is worth noting that the Druid cards in this expansion, like New Heights, just absolutely put this deck over the top, because now you have yet another Wild Growth, so you can afford to run one less Malfurion's Gift in order to run cards like Sleep Under the Stars. You have a lot of really big minions that are available in this deck. It does what Tempo Druid does. I don't think I need to explain why this deck is so busted, but the new Druid cards really did help enable this deck a little bit more. But this is the worst of the Druid decks in my opinion, at least compared to Concierge Druid. It has a little bit of a different play style to where if you want to play for the board and maybe deny your opponent with cards like Yogg, maybe this is a bit better. But overall, I feel like if you're going up against a lot of aggro, it is not a good deck against that. This is really good against the slower decks. But let's be honest, if you throw Doomkin at the right time, you're gonna pretty much beat anything if you have the right combo enabling this. So yeah, if you want to play the debatably best deck in the game right now, Druid is still kind of on top and is still kind of king. Oh man, now do you guys understand why I try my best to show you as many archetypes in my top 5 decks videos? Because when we start talking about the meta, things get really boring. And unfortunately for Paladin, it is very boring right now, to where you can play Aggro Paladin with the Prismatic Beam and the Showdown package, like we've seen since Badlands was introduced. Like it's just another deck that's still gonna be good. Flash Sale from Whizbang's Workshop kind of put this deck a little bit over the top with how it can now buff up its board and stick a board without having to just play the Crusader Aura for. Like this is just a good deck. I don't really need to explain this in full detail. But yeah, this is a deck that people are playing to counter Druid at top Legend. I don't know how good this is against Shaman in particular, but Aggro Paladin is still seeing play at top Legend, which is sad in my opinion. Oh, Handbuff Paladin, next. No, but the one thing that I will say about this deck is that Handbuff Paladin has gone completely into the area of countering Druid. Customs Enforcer, enemy cards that didn't start in the deck now cost 2 more. This is a special, you know, middle finger to Rogue. You have Razor Scale against the Druid, and even Sandcastle is finding its way into this deck. So, you know, Handbuff Paladin has some kind of cool things going for it, but I just don't like how good this archetype still is. I wanted Holy Paladin. I don't want Handbuff Paladin that has new cards in it. I just want Holy Paladin. Is that too much to ask, Blizzard? Next up, we have the Hearthstone equivalent of doing your homework. Yeah, Overheal Priest. That pretty much gives my opinion on the deck right there. This deck is very intricate. It has a lot of different synergies and a lot of powerful combos it can exert. But if you want my honest opinion, I do not want to spend, you know, I don't want to play as many games as I did with Nature Shaman in order to finally understand what I'm doing with this Overheal Priest. It's not a matter of like understanding, oh yeah, Adonis combo, duh. Yeah, of course we can win with Adonis combo. But this is one of those decks that has so many different ways of going about its combos, especially now that we have Rest and Peace in the deck. Because you have two different ways of utilizing this card, right? You could bring back the Adonis after it dies, so you could do your OTK, or depending on the matchup, if you want to play Amin Thule and bring this card a whole bunch of times and really show how much people hate priests, then you can do that. There's a lot of different ways of playing this deck. There's ways of just automatically winning with an injured Hauler clear. There's ways of winning with like pip value. There's ways of winning with just playing minions, sticking them onto the board and just going face because the clergies never die and you will draw your entire deck. Like, this deck is just so frustrating to go up against sometimes because it feels like it has three different directions it can go. It can fight for tempo, it can fight for control, and it can also OTK and kill you and technically remove any fun cards that you have on the field. So yeah, Overheal Priest, if you're someone that really likes these intricate, like really difficult to master decks, this is definitely going to be a deck for you. But even though I am one of those people, I play this deck and I just get uber overwhelmed with Overheal Priest, or I just don't have fun because I'm thinking so much and I just lose, and I don't know. I don't know what it is about this deck, but I don't like it. I should like it, but I don't. Maybe it's a priest. Maybe that's the real reason why. Next up is a deck I really didn't want to put on this list, but Zarimi Priest is legitimately making a comeback, maybe because it's got a pretty decent Druid matchup. I really don't know the reason why this deck is coming back, but not only in the Legend ranks is this deck resurfacing, but in the top Legend ranks, people are starting to play this deck again. According to HSReplay, this is one of the best lists in recent days, so I don't know if this is just a phenomenon that's trying to counter Shaman, that's trying to counter like the Paladins we were seeing, trying to counter Druid obviously, but there is a real reason why this deck is starting to resurface again, and it might just be the fact that playing for board and just sticking a board is very powerful right now, you know? 1 mana 3/2s, dude. Remember when we thought Miracle Salesman and Battle Mage were too much as 1 mana 2/2s? Nah, man, 1 mana 3/2s, sometimes 1 mana 4/3s. Absolutely busted at times. So yeah, you have Trusty Fishing Rod as the new card that really finds its way into this deck to enable pulling out 1-drops from the deck. You've also got cards like the Vol'jin, which are really good at giving you, you know, like double damage capabilities, to where if you have a 1/1, a 10/10, you essentially have 20 damage because of that 10/10 as long as those two minions can attack. So yeah, Vol'jin definitely deserves a spot in this deck. Sasquatch is actually super interesting to see, very unexpected. I imagine this is in the deck for like a refill, and I actually used this card in my Theorycraft version of Zarimi Priest that I never ended up posting actually. Because I didn't think that it'd be that good, and it turns out it's pretty decent. So if you want to use your Sasquatch and you don't have a reason to play Hunter, you can utilize it in Priest. Probably not that much better of a circumstance, but yeah, Sasquatch does see play. And at the number 5 slot, we have Rainbow DK. That's right, Rainbow DK actually makes it into my top 5 decks in the meta, and this is because I was playing this deck yesterday, and I didn't have the most insane win rate, but against like Shaman in particular, this deck actually didn't feel that bad. Now granted, Shaman can have scams, Shaman can do ridiculous things right now, but one thing this deck does consistently is just playing for board and then drawing cards to enable the best card in Rainbow DK. I do not care who you are. If you are playing Rainbow DK and you don't have this in your deck, not based. You don't have my support. You need to be playing Climactic Necrotic Explosion in a Rainbow deck, especially if it spends corpses, dude. So we decided to tech this deck more so along drawing very quickly with cards like Acolyte of Death and the Crop Rotation, but we also have other cards like Ghoul's Knight in order to really give Acolyte of Death a ton of different value. Like, this deck is so easy to draw now because we have cards like Mining Casualties giving us the 1/1s. We have Dreadhound Handler not only giving us the 2/2 with Rush, but also giving us the 1/1 with the Reborn as well. So even if you don't have like a full Crop Rotation value turn, there might be some times where you have to trade some of your undeads before you overdraw your entire hand with a card like Acolyte of Death. But the rest of the deck is just full of your typical corpse spenders. We have Ma and Pa, Army of the Dead, Corpse Bride as the typical cards you would see in a deck like this, Stitch Giant in order to enable the corpse spenders like the Corpse Bride. But one other card that's very important to realize is actually Corpsicle. Corpsicle is an insanely good card because, keep in mind, this card will automatically spend the corpses before it adds it to your hand. It's not like you cast it, then you spend 3, and then it gets added to your hand. You spend 3, it casts 3 if you have the corpses available, and then at the end of the turn, it will give you this card. So really effective in order to, like, you know, if you have a ton of corpses, just keep throwing 6 to the face every single turn in order to make the Climactic Narcotic Explosion more likely to be a burst tool for lethal. So yeah, one other thing to talk about is Eliza. I didn't believe in this card. I really did not believe in this card, but now that we are running Ghoul's Knight as well as Army of the Dead in this particular version of Rainbow DK, Eliza does actually, you know, make a difference because now, you know, your Ghoul's Knight can go from dealing 5 to dealing 10 to the face. And if you're going up against like a Druid or like a slower deck that doesn't play for the board, this really can just win the game by playing Eliza into Ghoul's Knight. They don't have an AoE. This could potentially deal 20 damage. Like, I just kind of can't unsee the card being good, but definitely, like, this card is on the cusp of not being good enough. Just gotta say it. Like, for the Rainbow archetype in general, I really want, like, another Corpse Bride, for example. But having 2 Corpse Brides, probably a bit too much. So having the Ghoul's Knight with the Gore Blade, as well as enabling, you know, 3/2 Army of the Deads. The 3/2 removal is actually very important in the late stages of the game, so I don't want you to sleep on that whatsoever. The extra 1 attack can be absolutely massive, especially when you think about, you know, you're essentially doubling the attack of your 1/1 minions. That is very good, very good, very good. But yeah, Rainbow DK, C&E, RGB, LGBT DK is on my list as the 5th best deck in Hearthstone. It may be a little bit difficult to win with it at the lower ranks, but in top legend, this deck is performing. What can I say? And because I had 9 decks available, I had to round it out, dude. I can't just put 9 decks in a video. Top 5 deck video, dude, you'll never get 5 decks from these kind of videos. But yeah, Zilliax Warrior, it's still good. This deck is probably going to get nerfed, and that's why I'm putting it as my honorable mention, because this deck is fizzling out of top legend due to all the OTK decks that are emerging. But I'll tell you right now, dude, this deck is absolutely king on your way to legend for sure. Like, if you just want the easiest legend climb ever to just, you know, play Chemical Spill, play Zilliax, you automatically win the game, you'll probably just have people concede against you because you're just playing Warrior. So yeah, it's still a powerful deck. It may not be the top 5, but it's still extremely good, depending on the matchups that you are getting. And personally, I really do believe that Warrior does have game against Shaman. But the biggest thing is you can't have your Zilliax get transformed, obviously. So the way to play around this is to play Chemical Spill when you have Zilliax trading into a minion and it can for sure die. So if there's a minion with 6 attack, you can play Chemical Spill, Zilliax loses Divine Shield, you trade into that 6th attack minion, the Zilliax dies, and then you get another attack. So you can essentially heal for 8, so there's no reason on 30 HP just to play the Chemical Spill to tempo out the minion when you know that a Shaman can just completely win the game by playing the wave. So yeah, play around those waves, play around your opponent's win conditions. You got Boom Boss in order to completely delete their deck. This deck is still very good in my opinion. If you don't like the idea of Fizzle and Zola, you can put in more removal in this deck. You can put in another Town Crier if you want the consistency of the Zilliax. But honestly, this deck is probably not getting any better until the deck gets nerfed. So yeah, if you want to play some Zilliaxes and some Hydration Stations, I am going to just make this claim right now. They're probably either going to do something to Zilliax, and in addition to nerfing Zilliax, this card is probably going to get hit to, you know, resurrect different minions, because everyone has been suggesting this. Brian Kibler had the suggestion in his most recent video going over the balance changes. A lot of people had this note when this card was first revealed because of Zilliax. So yeah, it just feels like this and Inventor Boom are probably going to get, you know, the word different added to their text, because bringing back a bunch of Zilliaxes, it doesn't matter who you are. It's toxic. It's not fun. No one wants to deal with the same minion being brought back over 40 times. But there you guys have it. Those are the top 5 decks to be playing right now before the balance changes potentially go out this next week. I don't know exactly when they're happening, but I will give you an update as soon as I am aware of that. It'll be on my Twitch channel, it'll be on my Twitter, so make sure you guys check out the other social medias. We've got Discord, we got a bunch of other things, so you can catch us on other places. So in case you can't get my attention in the YouTube comments, then go ahead and check out those other platforms. But thank you so much for making it to the end of this video. We have 2 other deck videos we will be posting in the next day, hopefully before any kind of balance changes go out to kind of give you guys ideas of, what gets nerfed, what might be good, what are some other ideas to keep in mind in case my favorite deck gets nerfed. Don't worry, Clark HELLSCREAM has got you covered. But again, thank you so much for making it to the end of this video. If you happen to get to this point, go ahead and put Overworking Priest. There we go. Type Overworking Priest in the comments so I know that you guys made it to this point in the video. But thank you so much for making it to the end of this, and we will see you for the next one.